If your front end tests are randomly failing, they are not flaky. You're wrong. Same code, nothing changed, and somehow different results. Passes locally but fails in CI. And the worst part, you didn't change anything. So what do? We blame the test. We call it flaky. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's async, maybe it's just random. So we try to fix it. We add retries, run it again, maybe twice, maybe three times. Now your tests are slower and still failing. And this is where most people get it wrong. This is not randomness, it's dependency. Your UI test depends on an API, and that API depends on a backend. And that backend, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it returns different data, and sometimes it just fails. And here is the real issue, you don't control any of that. So, what's the typical fix? We wait longer, we retry more, we increase timeouts, and it feels like it's helping, but it's not. You are fixing the symptom, not the cause. You are not testing your UI here. You are testing whether some external server behaves or not. And that's why your tests feel random. So, what's the real fix? Remove the uncertainty, take control of the network, stop depending on real APIs inside your tests, mock the responses, control the data, make your tests deterministic. Let me show you how. So for this demo, I'm using JSON placeholder website. And if we navigate to the URL, we can see that it gives us a list of all the users, right? Now let me open the network tab and see which API is getting called. So here we can see that is the users API which is getting called, and it in the response we are getting a list of all the users. So we will be using Playwright with TypeScript to see this in action. Let's start with a simple UI test that looks correct but has a hidden problem. Let's break this down step by step and see what's actually happening behind the scenes. Let me copy the URL from the website. Now this test is dependent on the real API. So if the backend fails or the API becomes unstable, then your UI test will fail. Not because of the UI, but because of external dependencies. So this is what we are trying to fix in this video. Our UI test should not be failing because of some external dependency. Let me copy the name from the website. It's Lane Graham. And we can now try running our tests. So we can use the command npx playwright test and specify our spec file. So we see that the test has passed. So this was our first step, testing our UI test using the real API data. And in the console, we can see the full response from the API. Now let's simulate a backend failure. The backend is not actually broken, but in real systems, APIs fail all the time. So instead of waiting for that to happen, I will simulate it. So I'm using page.route. This tells Playwright whenever this API is called, intercept it. So now this request will never reach the backend server. Instead, Playwright will catch it and return whatever response we define. And that's done using route.fulfill. Here I'm returning a 500 error with a custom response body. So here we get multiple options like headers, content type, response, body, status code. All these we can define the way we want to fulfill this API request. Let me copy the navigation steps from the step 1 and uncomment it, and I can change the console.log to mention it that it is simulating the broken backend response. Let's try to run it to see how it works. And now it fails. Same test, same UI, but now it's broken. Not because of UI, but because the backend behavior changed. Now let's fix this. So I can copy the intercept code from above and make changes to return my own mock data. So in this case now, instead of returning an error, we will be returning our own mock data, just a simple JSON. So for that, we also need to create one mock data. So I've created this constant mock data, and here I will define ID, name as mock user 1 and username. So now instead of returning 500 error, we will be returning 200, and in the body, we will stringify this mock data to return when this API is called. So I can change the console.log message as well. So it will say mock response, and our content should now contain mock user 1, not the lane gram, because that real API call was never made. It was intercepted by Playwright in between. So let me try to run it again. And now if we see, so the test has passed and the console is showing our mocked response and not the real complete API data. Let's break this down. The UI made a request, Playwright intercepted it and returned our response. The backend was never called. UI tests don't just test UI, they depend on APIs, data, environments. And when those break, your tests fail. If your tests depend on backend, they will always be unstable. But once you control the network, you control the test. I will be sharing more real world automation techniques like this. So if you are into Playwright, testing, or AI in QA automation, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching the video.